In a world full of surface-level stories, we go deeper. Welcome to The Depth, your destination for facts, science, history, and mysteries that shape our world. Let's begin the journey, deeper than ever before. That feeling of joy when you see a friend, or the jolt of fear from a scary movie. A huge part of that is orchestrated by a set of structures deep in your brain called the limbic system. Think of it as your brain's emotional core, involved in everything from your survival instincts to forming memories. It's the reason a certain song can make you happy, or a specific smell can transport you back to your childhood. It's the director of your inner emotional movie. Speaking of our senses, let's talk about sight. Your eyes are like incredibly advanced biological cameras. Inside, at the back of your eye, is a layer called the retina. This isn't just one uniform surface. It's packed with two types of specialized photoreceptor cells. First, you have about 120 million rods. These are your night vision specialists, incredibly sensitive to low light, but they don't see in color. They're why you can navigate a dim room but can't distinguish between different colored shirts in the dark. Then you have the cones. There are about 6 million of them, and they are the artists of your vision. They're responsible for all the vibrant colors you see in a sunset or a painting, and they also provide sharp, detailed vision in bright light. So, every time you look at the world, you have millions of rods and cones working in perfect harmony to create that rich visual experience. Now, let's move from sight to sound. How do sound waves traveling through the air turn into the music and voices we understand? The magic happens in a tiny, snail-shaped structure in your inner ear called the cochlea. When sound vibrations reach it, they travel through the fluid inside this spiral cavity, stimulating thousands of tiny hair cells. These cells are the nerve endings for hearing, and they convert those physical vibrations into electrical signals that the brain can interpret. It's an unbelievably precise mechanical and neurological process happening inside a structure no bigger than a pea. So, the cochlea is the microphone and converter for your brain's sound system. What about our sense of smell? You walk into a kitchen and immediately know someone is baking cookies. How? That's your olfactory bulb at work. Located in the front of your brain, just above your nasal cavity, the olfactory bulb is the first stop for information from your nose. It receives signals from the sensory cells in your nose and begins the process of identifying the scent. What's truly amazing is how closely linked our sense of smell is to memory and emotion, thanks to its direct connections with the limbic system we talked about earlier. That's why the smell of rain on pavement or a specific perfume can trigger such powerful, instant memories. And, of course, we can't forget taste. That delicious flavor from your favorite food is processed by a specific region of the brain called the gustatory cortex. This area receives signals from your taste buds and integrates them with other sensory information, like the food's smell and texture, to create the complete perception of flavor. It's why food tastes so bland when you have a cold. Your gustatory cortex isn't getting the all-important information from your blocked-up olfactory system. It's a team effort, and your brain is the master chef combining all the ingredients. Now, let's explore one of the most incredible connections in our body, the gut-brain axis. Ever had a gut feeling, or felt butterflies in your stomach? That's not just a saying. It's a real biological phenomenon, largely controlled by the vagus nerve. This is the longest nerve of your autonomic nervous system, wandering from your brainstem all the way down through your chest and into your abdomen, connecting to your heart, lungs, and, crucially, your digestive tract. It acts as a two-way superhighway, allowing your brain to influence your gut and, just as importantly, allowing your gut to send signals back to your brain. This constant communication influences your mood, stress response, and even your immune system. So, taking care of your gut health is truly taking care of your mental health. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that plays with our psychology: placebo buttons. Have you ever frantically pushed a crosswalk button, feeling like you're speeding up the signal? Well, in many cities, those buttons do absolutely nothing. They're called placebo buttons. Their real function isn't to control the traffic lights, which are often on an automatic timer, but to give you a sense of control. Pushing the button makes you feel like you've done something, reducing your impatience and anxiety while you wait. It's a clever trick that shows how much our minds crave a feeling of agency, even if it's just an illusion. It reveals that sometimes the feeling of control is just as important as control itself. So much of what our body does happens without us even thinking about it. Your heart beating, your lungs breathing, your food digesting. This is all the work of the autonomic nervous system. On the other hand, every deliberate action you take, from picking up a glass of water to typing on a keyboard or walking across the room, is governed by your somatic nervous system. This is the part of your nervous system that controls voluntary muscle movements. When you decide to move, your brain sends a signal down your spinal cord and through the nerves of the somatic system to the exact muscles needed to perform the action. So, while the autonomic system is the silent autopilot, the somatic system is your hands-on control, letting you interact with the world exactly as you intend. Now, a little biology pop quiz. What organ in your body is responsible for regulating your blood sugar? If you guess the pancreas, you're absolutely right. This amazing organ produces insulin, a hormone that acts like a key, unlocking your cells to let glucose in for energy. Without it, sugar would just build up in your bloodstream, which is why the pancreas is so vital for our health. It's a small but mighty powerhouse working behind the scenes every single day. Now, let's talk about memories. You know that incredible feeling when you recall a favorite childhood moment or finally remember where you left your keys? You can thank a part of your brain, called the hippocampus. Shaped like a seahorse, which is actually what its name means in Greek, the hippocampus is the brain's memory-making machine. It's crucial for taking our short-term experiences and converting them into long-term memories that we can cherish for a lifetime. So, next time you remember a fun fact from this video, give a little nod to your trusty hippocampus. Have you ever heard of the placebo effect? It's often misunderstood as people just thinking they feel better. But the truth is far more incredible. The placebo effect is a real, measurable neurological event. When someone believes a treatment will work, even if it's just a sugar pill, their brain can release its own natural pain-relieving chemicals, like endorphins. Brain scans have actually shown changes in brain activity in people experiencing the placebo effect. It is a powerful demonstration of the mind-body connection and shows just how influential our beliefs can be on our physical health. It's not just in your head, it's in your brain chemistry. Speaking of the brain, let's take a quick tour of its different regions. Ever wonder how you're able to hear my voice right now? That's your temporal lobe at work. Located on the sides of your head, roughly behind your ears, the temporal lobes are the primary centers for processing auditory information. They help you understand language, recognize music, and make sense of all the sounds in your environment. They're basically your brain's built-in sound engineers. But what about touch? When you feel the warmth of the sun on your skin or the sharp sting of a paper cut? That sensory information is processed by another amazing part of your brain, the parietal lobe. Situated near the top and back of your head, the parietal lobe is a hub for all things sensory. It integrates information about touch, temperature, pressure, and pain, helping you navigate and interact with the physical world. It's what allows you to tell the difference between silk and sandpaper without even looking. Now, for a record-breaking fact that I absolutely do not recommend you try to beat, what's the longest a human has ever voluntarily gone without sleep? In 1964, a 17-year-old high school student named Randy Gardner stayed awake for an astonishing 11 days and 25 minutes for a science fair project. While he set a world record, the experiment took a serious toll, causing hallucinations, memory lapses, and severe cognitive impairment. It serves as a stark reminder of just how essential sleep is for our physical and mental well-being. So, please make sure you get your 8 hours. All right, it's time to debunk a classic. We've all been there. Your favorite snack falls on the floor, and you quickly snatch it up, declaring, 5-second rule. I have some bad news for you. That rule is a complete myth. Scientific studies have shown that bacteria, like Salmonella and E. coli, can transfer to food almost instantly upon contact with a contaminated surface. The amount of bacteria transferred depends more on the moisture of the food and the type of surface than the length of time. So, sadly, the safest bet is to just let that fallen cookie go. Let's switch gears to something a little more lighthearted. You see them every day when you read or type, but have you ever thought about them? I'm talking about the tiny dots over the lowercase letters I and J. They actually have a name. That little dot is called a tittle. It comes from the Latin word titulus, which meant a sign or inscription. It was added in the Middle Ages to help distinguish the letters I and J from other letters with similar vertical strokes, like U and M, in handwritten manuscripts. So now you know, you don't just dot your I's, you tittle them. Here's one for the foodies. If you go to a bakery and ask for a baker's dozen, how many items will you get? Not 12, but 13. This tradition dates back to medieval England. Bakers who were caught selling short or underweight loaves of bread faced severe fines or public punishment. To avoid any risk of accidentally short-changing a customer due to variations in baking, they would throw in an extra loaf for every dozen they sold. This extra item was called the vitret, the vantage loaf, and ensured they were always on the right side of the law. It was a clever form of insurance. Let's trace the origin of a word that many of us have probably used or been called at some point. Nerd. You might think it came from some 1950s college slang, but you'd be wrong. The word nerd was actually first coined by the one and only Dr. Seuss. In his 1950 book, If I Ran the Zoo, the narrator, Gerald McGrew, lists a variety of fantastical creatures he'd collect for his zoo. One of them is described as a nurgle, a nerd, and a seersucker, too. The illustration shows a grumpy, human-like creature. From that whimsical origin, the word evolved over the years to describe a studious, socially awkward, but often very intelligent person. Who knew Dr. Seuss gave us such an iconic term? When someone goes berserk, we picture wild, uncontrollable chaos, and we're not far off. This word travels all the way back to the Viking Age, from the Old Norse word berserker. These were legendary Viking warriors, famous for fighting in a trance-like, frenzied rage. It's believed they wore bear skins into battle. The bear part of the word means bear, and fought with such terrifying intensity that they seemed immune to pain. So, the next time your cat gets the zoomies and goes berserk, you can tell them they're channeling their inner Viking warrior. From the battlefield to the bird hunt, let's talk about the word sniper. You might think this word has military origins, but it actually started with bird watchers, or rather, bird hunters. Back in the 1770s, there was a type of bird called a snipe. These birds are notoriously difficult to hunt. They're small, fast, and fly in an erratic zigzag pattern. Anyone skilled enough to successfully hunt a snipe was considered an incredibly sharp shooter. They were called snipers. The term was later adopted by the military to describe marksmen with exceptional accuracy. So, a word that began in the quiet marshes found its way to the front lines of history. Now, how about sabotage? It sounds sneaky and destructive, right? The story behind this one is fascinating. It comes from the French word sabot, which is a type of simple wooden shoe, kind of like a clog. During the early days of the Industrial Revolution, factory workers were facing terrible conditions and were being replaced by new, intimidating machinery. Legend has it that frustrated workers would sometimes throw their sabots into the gears of the machines to break them and halt production. Whether this happened often or was just a powerful threat, the act gave us the word sabotage, a deliberate act of destruction to disrupt an operation. It's a powerful reminder of a time of intense social and industrial change. Let's switch gears to something a little more nice. If I call you nice, you'd take it as a compliment. But if we traveled back to the 13th century, you'd be insulted. The word nice originally comes from the Latin nescius, meaning ignorant or unaware. Over the centuries, it slowly evolved. It went from meaning silly and ignorant to fussy and particular, then to delicate and refined. By the 18th century, it finally settled on the meaning we know today: kind and agreeable. It's amazing how a word can do a complete 180-degree turn in its meaning. So, history shows that being nice wasn't always a nice thing to be. Here's one that might make you look at your own hands differently: sinister. Today, it means evil or menacing, but its origin is purely directional. Sinister is simply the Latin word for on the left side. In ancient Rome and many cultures throughout history, the left side was associated with bad luck and evil omens. Augurs, who were priests that interpreted omens from the flight of birds, considered birds flying on the left to be a bad sign. This superstition was so strong that it tainted the very word for left, transforming it into a synonym for malevolence. This is also why the word dexterity, which means skilled, comes from dexter, the Latin word for right. Sorry to all my fellow left-handers out there, we've been unfairly maligned for centuries. Now for a word born from a protest, boycott. This isn't an ancient word. It dates back to 1880s Ireland. There was an English land agent named Captain Charles Boycott. He was responsible for collecting rent from tenant farmers, and during a time of poor harvests, he refused to lower the rents and even evicted some families. In response, the local community, led by the Irish Land League, organized a completely new form of protest. They didn't resort to violence. Instead, they simply ostracized him. His workers stopped working, local shops wouldn't sell to him, and even the postman stopped delivering his mail. He was completely isolated. This campaign was so effective that his name, boycott, became the word for refusing to deal with a person or organization as a form of protest. Let's move from social history to architecture. Ever heard of a loophole? We use it to mean a small way to get around a rule or a law. Well, its original meaning was much more literal. A loophole was a feature of medieval castles. They were the tall, narrow vertical slits in the castle walls. These slits were just wide enough for an archer inside to shoot an arrow out at attackers, but they were so narrow that it was almost impossible for an enemy to shoot an arrow back in. It was a defensive gap, a small opening that provided a huge advantage. Over time, that idea of a small, clever opening that gives you an advantage was applied to laws and contracts, giving us the modern meaning of loophole. Ready for a word you probably use all the time? Okay, it's arguably one of the most successful verbal exports in the world, but its origin is surprisingly silly. The most widely accepted theory traces it back to a joke in 1830s Boston. At the time, there was a trend among young, educated people to humorously misspell words and use their initials. OK was an abbreviation for all correct, a deliberate misspelling of all correct. It was a funny piece of slang that just happened to catch on, especially after it was used in the 1840 presidential campaign of Martin Van Buren, who was nicknamed Old Kinderhook. His supporters formed OK clubs, and the word's popularity exploded. So, one of the most useful and universal words in the English language started as a simple joke. Let's talk about something a bit more serious. A mortgage. The word itself sounds heavy, and for good reason. It comes to us from Old French. Mort means death, and gage means pledge. So, a mortgage is literally a death pledge. It sounds grim, but it makes sense. The idea was that the pledge, or the agreement, dies in one of two ways, either when the debt is fully paid off, or if the borrower fails to pay, in which case they lose the property. It is a powerful term that truly captures the weight and commitment of taking on such a massive debt. A death pledge. Wow. What do you call a giant, water-loving mammal? A hippopotamus, of course, but what does that name actually mean? If you break it down into its ancient Greek roots, hippos means horse, and potamos means river. So a hippopotamus is literally a river horse. The ancient Greeks, upon seeing these huge beasts spending so much time in the water, apparently thought they looked like a type of horse that lived in the river. It might seem a little strange to us now, but it's a beautiful, poetic name. A river horse. I love that. You see a big, gray tank of an animal with a horn on its face. What do you call it? A rhinoceros, of course. But did you know that name is basically just a literal description? In ancient Greek, rhino means nose and keros means horn. So, a rhinoceros is literally a nose-horned animal. The ancient Greeks were clearly very practical with their naming conventions, weren't they? It's like calling a dog a barky tail wagger. Now, let's move from the jungle to the stage. Picture this. You're out with friends, it's late, and someone suggests karaoke. Love it or hate it, you know exactly what it is. But what does the word karaoke actually mean? It's a Japanese word, a combination of kara, which means empty, and oke, which is short for okasutora, the Japanese way of saying orchestra. So, when you're belting out your favorite tune, you're singing along to an empty orchestra. It's kind of poetic, isn't it? Just you, the microphone, and the ghost of a band. Speaking of epic battles, let's talk chess. The ultimate goal, the final move, the word that signals victory, checkmate. It sounds so definitive, so final. And it should. It comes directly from the Persian phrase shah mat. Shah means king, and mat means is dead. So, when you declare checkmate, you're not just saying the king is trapped, you're dramatically announcing the king is dead. A little dark, but definitely gets the point across. From ancient kings to modern slang, let's talk about a word you've probably said 1,000 times. Dude. Hey, dude, what's up? Dude, that's awesome. It's the ultimate casual greeting, but its origins are anything but casual. Back in the late 1800s, a dude was a man who was ridiculously well-dressed almost to a fault. Think top hats, monocles, and perfectly tailored suits. They were the dandies of their day. The word was actually kind of an insult, poking fun at men who cared too much about their appearance. How it evolved from meaning over-the-top fancy man to chill, relaxed person is a linguistic mystery, but a hilarious one. All right, time to hit the gym. You go there to lift weights, run on the treadmill, maybe take a class, but the original gyms were a little different. The word gymnasium comes from the ancient Greek word gymnasein, which means to exercise naked. Yup, you heard that right. In ancient Greece, athletes trained and competed completely in the buff. It was a celebration of the human body. So, next time you're feeling a little self-conscious in your gym shorts, just be grateful that times have changed. Or maybe not. Who am I to judge? From the gym to the theater, let's look at the word tragedy. We associate it with sad stories, heartbreaking endings, and maybe a little bit of Shakespeare. But its origin is, well, it's goat-related. Seriously. Tragedy comes from the Greek tragoidia, which literally translates to goat song. Why goat song? Historians have a few theories. Maybe a goat was the prize in a dramatic competition, or maybe performers wore goatskins like a chorus. Whatever the reason, just remember that every great tragic play, from Oedipus to Hamlet, has a secret, bleeding, goaty past. Ever felt a sudden, overwhelming, irrational fear? That feeling has a name: panic. And that name comes from a god, specifically the Greek god Pan. He was the god of the wild, of shepherds and flocks, and was often depicted with the hindquarters and horns of a goat. Goats are really having a moment in this episode, aren't they? The legend goes that if you disturbed Pan while he was napping in the woods, he would let out a terrifying shout that would cause panikos, or sudden, groundless fear, in anyone who heard it. So, that jolt of panic you feel is literally the spirit of an angry goat god yelling at you. Okay, let's move from words to things. Let's talk about food. Think of a carrot. What color is it? Orange, right? Well, for most of their history, carrots weren't orange at all. They were originally purple and sometimes white or yellow. The bright orange carrot we know and love today is basically a piece of political propaganda. In the 17th century, Dutch growers cultivated orange carrots as a tribute to William of Orange, who led the charge for Dutch independence. They became so popular that they completely took over. So, every time you eat an orange carrot, you're eating a little piece of Dutch history. How about a condiment with a crazy past? Ketchup. Today, it's the go-to partner for French fries and burgers. But in the 1830s, it was sold as medicine. An Ohio physician named Dr. John Cook Bennett began selling it in pill form, claiming it was a cure for all sorts of ailments, especially indigestion, diarrhea, and jaundice. Tomato pills were all the rage for a while, until a bunch of copycats started selling fake versions that didn't work, and the whole medicinal ketchup bubble burst. Imagine going to the pharmacy for a bottle of ketchup. And for our final fact, let's uncan a mystery. That iconic blue tin of canned meat, Spam. Many people think it stands for something posing as meat, or some other funny acronym. The truth is a bit simpler. It was the result of a naming contest at Hormel Foods. The name Spam is a portmanteau, a blend of two words. Can you guess which ones? Spiced and ham. Yep, that's it. Spiced ham became Spam. It's not as scandalous as the myths, but it's the simple, tasty truth. For decades, we've heard it called a useless organ, a leftover from our evolutionary past that only causes trouble. But what if I told you that modern science is completely rewriting that story? Recent research suggests the appendix is actually a VIP lounge, a safe house for the good bacteria in your gut. When you get sick and your digestive system gets wiped out, the appendix acts like a secret bunker, protecting a colony of beneficial microbes. Once the coast is clear, these good guys emerge to repopulate your gut and get everything back in working order. So, far from being useless, your appendix is your gut's personal bodyguard. Pretty cool, right? All right, open wide and say, ah. See that little hanging ball at the back of your throat? That's your uvula. It's often the butt of jokes in cartoons, but it's a surprisingly sophisticated piece of equipment. The uvula is a key player in your ability to speak. It helps you form certain sounds by sealing off the passage to your nasal cavity. Think of the sounds in words like king or song. That's your uvula at work. It also secretes saliva to keep your throat moist and plays a critical role in your gag reflex, protecting you from swallowing something too large or potentially harmful. So, next time you see it, give a little nod of respect to your personal speech assistant and throat guardian. Now, let's look at a feature you see in the mirror every single day, but probably never think about: the philtrum. That's the vertical groove that runs from the base of your nose down to your upper lip. While it doesn't have a specific biological function in adults, its presence is a fascinating clue to how our faces are formed in the womb. During fetal development, our face develops in separate pieces that eventually fuse together. The philtrum is the meeting point, the beautiful little indentation that marks where the different parts of your face came together to create your unique look. It's a permanent, subtle reminder of the incredible journey you took before you were even born. Let's move down to our hands. Take a look at your fingernails. See that white crescent-shaped area at the base? That's called the lunula, which is Latin for little moon. The lunula is actually the visible part of the nail matrix, which is where your nail cells are born. This area is so delicate that it appears white because the blood vessels underneath are partially hidden. The health and appearance of your lunulae can even give clues about your overall health. So, these little moons aren't just for decoration. They're the very foundation of your fingernails. Okay, now for a fun one. Put your finger on the spot right between your eyebrows, just above your nose. That smooth and, for most people, hairless patch of skin has a name: the glabella. It comes from the Latin word glabellus, which means smooth. While it might seem like just a random bit of skin, the glabella is used by doctors to test for dehydration. If they gently pinch the skin there and it doesn't bounce back quickly, it can be a sign that you need to drink more water. It's also the spot many of us instinctively touch or rub when we're thinking deeply or feeling stressed. Now, let's venture into the most complex and amazing organ of all: the brain. We're going to do a quick tour of some of its most important neighborhoods. First up is the occipital lobe, located at the very back of your head. This is your brain's personal movie theater. Every single thing you see, colors, shapes, movements, is processed here. When light hits your eyes, signals are sent all the way back to the occipital lobe, which then interprets them into the rich visual world you experience every moment. Without it, your eyes would be open, but you wouldn't see a thing. Moving to the front, we have the frontal lobe. This is the big boss, the CEO of your brain. It's the control panel that manages your personality, your decision-making, your ability to plan for the future, and your social skills. When you're weighing the pros and cons of a decision, resisting the urge to eat that extra slice of cake, or figuring out a complex problem, you're using your frontal lobe. It's what makes you, well, you. It governs our most complex thoughts and behaviors, setting us apart from most other animals. Nestled within this powerful frontal lobe is a special little region called Broca's area. This is your brain's speechwriter and director. It's responsible for turning your thoughts into structured grammatical sentences and then coordinating the muscle movements of your mouth, tongue, and vocal cords to actually speak them out loud. If you've ever struggled to find the right word, you know that feeling of Broca's area working overtime. It's the reason you can tell a story, ask a question, or sing a song. But what's the point of speaking if no one can understand you? That's where Wernicke's area comes in. Located in the temporal lobe, just behind your ear, Wernicke's area is the brain's language comprehension center. It's what allows you to understand the words you hear and read. When someone speaks to you, the sound goes to your auditory cortex, but it's Wernicke's area that deciphers the meaning. Broca's area and Wernicke's area work together in a beautiful partnership, allowing us to have fluid, meaningful conversations. It's the neural basis for all human communication. Now, let's dive deeper into the brain's core operations. Meet the hypothalamus. This tiny, almond-sized structure is incredibly powerful. It acts as the crucial link between your nervous system and your endocrine system, which controls your hormones. The hypothalamus is your body's internal thermostat, regulating body temperature. It's also the source of your most basic drives. Feeling hungry? That's your hypothalamus telling you it's time to eat. Feeling thirsty? That's your hypothalamus again. It's the master regulator of your body's essential needs. And finally, let's talk about the thalamus. Imagine a massive, bustling mail sorting room in the center of your brain. That's the thalamus. It acts as the brain's primary relay station. Almost all the sensory information from your body, what you see, hear, touch, and taste, passes through the thalamus before being routed to the correct processing center in the cerebral cortex. It sorts through the constant flood of information, deciding what's important enough to be sent up to your conscious awareness and what can be ignored. It's the ultimate gatekeeper, preventing your brain from being completely overwhelmed. So, there you have it. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss our next deep dive. Let me know in the comments which body part surprised you the most. Until next time, stay curious. We've all ripped open a bag of M&Ms, right? But have you ever stopped to wonder what M&M actually stands for? It's not good or anything like that. It's actually the initials of the two guys who started it all. Forrest Mars, Sr., from the Mars Candy family, and Bruce Murray. So M&M stands for Mars and Murray. It's so simple, yet almost nobody knows it. Speaking of sweet treats, how about the popsicle? You'd think it was the result of some big food company's research and development department. Nope, it was invented by accident, by an 11-year-old kid. Back in 1905, a boy named Frank Epperson left a cup of soda with a stirring stick in it on his porch overnight. It was a cold night, the drink froze solid, and the next morning, he had the world's first ever popsicle. Can you imagine inventing something that iconic before you were even a teenager? It's a great reminder that sometimes the best ideas come from happy accidents. All right, let's move on to dessert. Who loves a good slice of German chocolate cake? That rich, layered cake with the coconut pecan frosting? Well, I've got some news for you. It has absolutely nothing to do with Germany. Not a thing. The cake was named after a man named Samuel German. He was an American baker who, way back in 1852, developed a type of dark baking chocolate for the Baker's Chocolate Company. They named the chocolate after him. Baker's German's Sweet Chocolate. Decades later, a recipe using his chocolate became super popular, and people just started calling it German chocolate cake. So, it's German's cake, not a German cake. Mind-boggling, right? The food origin confusion doesn't stop there. Let's talk about one of the most controversial pizza toppings of all time, pineapple. The Hawaiian pizza. You'd assume it came from Hawaii, with all its tropical vibes. Wrong again. The Hawaiian pizza was actually invented in Canada. In 1962, a restaurateur named Sam Panopoulos, who was originally from Greece, decided to throw some canned pineapple on a pizza at his restaurant in Chatham, Ontario, just to see what would happen. He was experimenting, and little did he know he was about to start a debate that would last for generations. So next time you're arguing about pineapple on pizza, you can drop the fact that it's a Canadian invention. Let's travel across the pond for our next culinary surprise: chicken tikka masala. It is often considered the national dish of the UK and is a staple on Indian restaurant menus worldwide. But if you go to India looking for its authentic origins, you might be disappointed. The most widely accepted story is that it was invented in Glasgow, Scotland, in the 1970s. A chef, allegedly of Pakistani or Bangladeshi origin, improvised the sauce for a customer who complained his chicken tikka was too dry. He supposedly added a can of tomato soup, some yogurt, and spices, and just like that, a legendary dish was born. From Scotland, not the streets of Delhi. Okay, how about a lighter dish? The Caesar salad. With a name like Caesar, you might think of ancient Rome. Maybe Julius Caesar himself enjoying a fresh bowl of greens. The truth is a little more recent and a lot closer to home for those of us in the Americas. The Caesar salad was invented in Tijuana, Mexico, around the 1920s. The creator was an Italian immigrant and restaurateur named Caesar Cardini. The story goes that on a busy 4th of July weekend, his kitchen was running low on supplies, so he had to whip something up with what he had left: romaine lettuce crouton, Parmesan cheese, olive oil, eggs, and Worcestershire sauce. He prepared it tableside for dramatic flair, and it was an instant hit. So, the iconic salad isn't Roman, or even from the US, but a delicious creation from Mexico. Let's move from the plate to the utensil drawer. You've seen it. You've probably used it at a picnic or in a cafeteria. I'm talking about the spork, that weirdly brilliant hybrid of a spoon and a fork. It feels like a modern invention, something from the fast food era, but its history goes way, way back. The first patent for a spork-like utensil was filed in 1874. A man named Samuel W. Francis patented a design for a combination spoon, fork, and knife, with the spoon part, tines at the end, and a sharpened edge. So that humble spork is actually a piece of 19th century innovation. Now, let's get into language and writing. Have you ever seen this punctuation mark, an exclamation point superimposed on a question mark? It looks like this. What is that thing? It's called an interrobang, and it was invented in 1962 by an advertising executive named Martin Spector. He wanted a single punctuation mark to convey an excited or rhetorical question. You know, like when you see something unbelievable and you say, "You're kidding me." That's a perfect time for an interrobang. It never quite caught on in formal writing, but it's a fascinating piece of punctuation history. You're kidding me. See, it works. Let's look at a word we use every single day. Goodbye. It seems so straightforward, just a simple parting word. But its origin is beautiful and deeply rooted in history. Goodbye is a contraction, a shortening of the phrase, "God be with ye." Over centuries, that blessing, "God be with ye," was slurred together in common speech, evolving from "God be with ye" to "good be we," and eventually to the goodbye we know today. So every time you say goodbye to someone, you're unknowingly passing on an old, heartfelt blessing for their well-being. I think that's just wonderful. Now, for all the 80s and 90s kids out there who grew up with Saturday morning cartoons, let's talk about a breakfast cereal icon, the one and only Cap'n Crunch. We all know the Cap'n, with his blue uniform and magnificent mustache. But did you know he has a full name? It's not just Cap'n. His full official name is Horatio Magellan Crunch. That's right, Horatio Magellan Crunch. He's the captain of the SS Guppy, and he was born on Crunch Island in the Sea of Milk. The lore is surprisingly deep for a cereal mascot. It just goes to show you that there are hidden stories and surprising details everywhere you look, even at the bottom of your cereal bowl. Have you ever tried to stump your friends with a word puzzle? Here's a good one for you. What is the longest word in the English language that doesn't contain a single vowel? No A, E, I, O, or U. Give up. The word is rhythms. It's a tricky one because the letter UI steps in to do the job of a vowel, but technically it fits the bill. It's a perfect little piece of trivia that shows just how flexible and fascinating our language can be. Speaking of words, do you know how to spell Pennsylvania? It's one of those words that trips people up all the time. Many people want to put two N's in the middle, like Pennsylvania, but it's actually spelled with just one N after the E. Pennsylvania. It's a small detail, but it's the kind of thing that can make or break a spelling bee. Let's stick with language for a moment. Ever just mindlessly scribble something down on a piece of paper? Well, that word has a history. It comes all the way from the Latin word scribellare, which means to write hastily or carelessly. It's amazing to think that when you're just doodling in a notebook, you're using a word with roots that go back thousands of years. It connects our simple, everyday actions to the ancient world. Now, let's shift gears from words to world history. Specifically a story from World War II that sounds like it was ripped straight from a Hollywood spy movie. It was a real-life operation called The Man Who Never Was. During the war, Allied intelligence needed a way to deceive the Axis powers about their invasion plans for Sicily. So, what did they do? They obtained the body of a deceased man, dressed him up as a Royal Marines officer, and gave him a new identity: Captain William Martin. They chained a briefcase to his wrist containing fake, top-secret documents that detailed a fictitious plan to invade Greece and Sardinia instead of Sicily. They then arranged for the body to wash ashore in Spain, a neutral but Axis-friendly country, knowing the documents would be found and passed on to German intelligence. The deception was a massive success. The Germans bought the fake intelligence hook, line, and sinker, diverting their troops away from Sicily. This brilliantly clever and macabre plan saved thousands of Allied lives and played a crucial role in the success of the actual invasion. It's a chilling and powerful reminder that sometimes the most effective weapons in war aren't guns or bombs, but information and deception. From a story of a life saved through deception to a tragedy where help was tragically close but never came. We've all heard the heartbreaking story of the Titanic, but have you ever heard of the SS Californian? This was a steamship that was stopped for the night, surrounded by ice, just 10 to 20 miles away from the Titanic on that fateful night in 1912. The crew of the Californian saw the distress rockets being fired by the sinking Titanic. They saw the flares lighting up the night sky. However, their wireless operator had already signed off for the night, so they never received the SOS calls. The captain of the Californian, Stanley Lord, was woken up multiple times by his officers who reported seeing the rockets. But for reasons that are still debated by historians to this day, he concluded they were just company signals from another ship and didn't take any significant action. By the time they finally responded the next morning, it was too late. The Titanic was gone, and over 1,500 people had perished in the icy waters. It's a haunting what if. Imagine how many lives could have been saved if that nearby ship had just understood the gravity of what they were witnessing. It's a stark lesson in the devastating consequences of miscommunication and inaction. Let's move from the vastness of the ocean to something you probably have in your pocket right now: a coin. Have you ever run your thumb along the edge of a dime or a quarter and felt those tiny little ridges? They're not just for decoration. Those ridges have a name. They're called reading, and they have a fascinating history. Back when coins were made of precious metals like gold and silver, people would often shave off tiny bits from the edges of the coins, a practice known as clipping. They could then collect these shavings and melt them down. To combat this, mints started adding reading to the edges. If a coin's edge was smooth, it was a clear sign that it had been tampered with. While our coins today aren't made of precious metals, the tradition of reading has stuck around, a silent reminder of a time when the value of a coin was literally its weight in gold. From money to measurement, let's talk about some units you probably don't use every day. If I asked you to measure something in scruples, you'd probably look at me funny. A scruple is a very old unit of weight, originating from the apothecary's system. It's equal to 20 grains, which is about 1/24th of an ounce. It's a tiny measurement used by pharmacists for centuries to precisely mix ingredients. While we use grams and milligrams today, the word scruple has survived in our language in a different way. When we say someone has no scruples, we mean they have no moral or ethical reservations. It's thought that the word evolved to mean a small, nagging doubt, like a tiny pebble in your shoe, that stops you from doing something wrong, much like a tiny unit of weight. Speaking of shoes, let's talk about that metallic thing they use to measure your feet in a shoe store. You know the one, where you put your heel in the back and they slide that thingy up to your toe. That device has a name. It's called a Brannock device, named after its inventor, Charles F. Brannock. He invented it back in the 1920s to get a more accurate foot measurement, not just for length but for width as well. So next time you're getting fitted for new shoes, you can impress the salesperson by saying, "Could you please pass me the Brannock device?" It's one of those everyday objects that has a specific name we just never learned. Let's dive into the animal kingdom for a moment, because nature is full of bizarre and incredible designs. Where is your heart? In your chest, right? Well, if you were a shrimp, the answer would be very different. A shrimp's heart is located in its head. More specifically, it's in its thorax, which is the fused head and chest region of a crustacean. So, its heart, stomach, and reproductive organs are all packed into its cephalothorax. It's a completely different body plan from ours, and it's a great example of how evolution finds all sorts of unique solutions to the challenge of life. So, when you're enjoying a shrimp cocktail, you're looking at an animal whose heart was in its head. It's a strange but true fact. Now, for something a little more mind-bending. I want you to try a little experiment with me. Pick a spot on the wall or on your screen and stare at it without moving your eyes. Just keep your gaze fixed on that single point. As you continue to stare, pay attention to the things in your peripheral vision, the things on the edges of what you can see. You might notice that they start to fade away, almost like they're disappearing into a gray fog. What you're experiencing is called the Troxler effect, or Troxler's fading. It was discovered by a Swiss physician named Ignaz Troxler way back in 1804. Your brain is incredibly efficient. When you stare at one spot, the neurons that process the unchanging images in your periphery basically get bored. They stop firing because your brain assumes that if something isn't moving or changing, it's not important. So, your brain just edits it out of your perception. It, as a powerful demonstration of how what we see isn't a perfect video recording of the world, but rather a constantly edited and interpreted version constructed by our brain. If you move your eyes, everything pops back into view. It's a cool, built-in optical illusion that happens to us all the time without us even realizing it. Let's bring it back to something we all use every single day: emojis. They've become a universal language conveying tone and emotion in our digital messages. But have you ever wondered which emoji is the king of them all? Which one is used more than any other around the globe? According to various studies and data from tech companies, the most used emoji in the world is the face with tears of joy emoji. You know the one. It's the perfect little symbol for when something is so funny you're literally crying with laughter. It beat out the simple heart, the thumbs up, and the smiley face. It's fascinating that across all cultures and languages, this specific expression of overwhelming, tearful joy is the one we reach for the most to communicate with each other. It's a surprisingly optimistic and heartwarming fact about our modern world, isn't it? You've probably heard this term thrown around in sci-fi movies, but what is it, really? Proposed by the brilliant Alan Turing in 1950, it's a test of a machine's ability to exhibit intelligent behavior that's indistinguishable from a human sees. Imagine you're texting with two entities, one human and one AI. If you can't reliably tell which is which, the AI has passed the Turing test. It's the ultimate benchmark for artificial intelligence, questioning the very nature of consciousness. As AI gets more sophisticated, we're getting closer and closer to machines that can pass this test consistently. It's both incredibly exciting and a little bit unnerving, don't you think? Now, let's zoom in from artificial intelligence to our own biological code. How many genes do you think are in the human body? 1 million? 500,000? For a long time, scientists thought the number was incredibly high, but the answer, discovered through the Human Genome Project, is surprisingly small. Speaking of things that aren't what they seem, let's talk about space. When you hear the term light year, what comes to mind? Time, right? It sounds like a really, really long time. But surprise! A light year is not a unit of time at all. It's a unit of distance. It's the distance that light, the fastest thing in the universe, travels in 1 year. That's about 9.46 trillion kilometers, or 5.88 trillion miles. So when we say a star is 10 light years away, We mean its light has traveled for 10 years across that immense distance to reach our eyes. It's a measurement that helps us comprehend the staggering scale of the cosmos. From the cosmos, let's journey back to Earth and into the shadowy world of espionage. We've all heard of the KGB, the infamous Soviet secret police. But did you know they had a whole department dedicated to something called active measures? This wasn't about James Bond-style shootouts. Active measures were all about political warfare and disinformation. Their goal was to manipulate public opinion, discredit enemies, and sow discord in foreign countries. They forged documents, spread conspiracy theories, and funded front organizations, all to subtly influence world events without firing a single shot. It was a masterclass in psychological warfare, and its effects are still studied by intelligence agencies today. Our next fact also comes from the 20th century, a project so secret and so powerful it changed the course of history forever. The Manhattan Project. This wasn't a real estate development in New York. It was the top-secret code name for the American-led research project during World War II that developed the first nuclear weapons. It brought together some of the world's most brilliant scientific minds, like Robert Oppenheimer and Enrico Fermi, in a race against time and against Nazi Germany. The project culminated in the creation of the atomic bomb, a weapon of unprecedented power that ended the war and ushered in the nuclear age. Let's switch gears completely and travel back to ancient India. When you hear the words Kama Sutra, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most people, it's just a book about physical positions. But that's a huge misunderstanding of its original purpose. The Kama Sutra was actually written as a comprehensive guide for wealthy, urban men on how to live a virtuous and well-rounded life. It covered everything from finding a partner and managing a household to personal grooming, art, and music. The famous sections on intimacy were just one small part of a much larger philosophy on living a graceful, cultured, and pleasurable existence. It was essentially a lifestyle guide for the ancient elite. From ancient lifestyles to ancient empires, let's talk about sheer size. What was the largest contiguous land empire in all of history? The Romans? The British? Nope. It was the Mongol Empire. In the 13th and 14th centuries, under leaders like Genghis Khan and his descendants, the Mongols conquered a staggering amount of territory. At its peak, the empire stretched from Eastern Europe all the way to the Sea of Japan, covering over 24 million square kilometers, or 9 million square miles. That's about 16% of the Earth's total land area. They created a vast, interconnected realm that, despite its brutal beginnings, facilitated trade and cultural exchange along the Silk Road on an unprecedented scale. Now, for a story of historical tragedy and a truly haunting what if. We all know the tragic story of the Titanic. But did you know there was another ship, the SS Californian, just 10 to 20 miles away on that fateful night? The crew of the Californian saw the Titanic's distress flares. They even tried to contact it by Morse lamp. But for a series of reasons still debated by historians, including their radio operator being off duty and their captain possibly misinterpreting the signals, they failed to respond. They didn't realize the gravity of the situation until the next morning. It's a chilling thought that help was so close yet so far away, and hundreds of lives might have been saved if things had gone just a little differently. Our next fact sounds like it's straight out of a spy thriller, but it's a real-life story of wartime deception. It's called Operation Mincemeat, also known as The Man Who Never Was. During World War II, British intelligence needed to mislead the Nazis about the planned Allied invasion of Sicily. So, they came up with an ingenious plan. They acquired the body of a deceased man, gave him a fake identity as a Royal Marine officer, and planted fake top-secret documents on him suggesting the Allies would invade Greece and Sardinia instead. They then let the body wash ashore in Spain, where they knew the documents would fall into German hands. The Germans bought the deception completely, diverting their troops and making the real invasion of Sicily much more successful. It's one of the most brilliant and bizarre acts of counter-espionage in history. You go into a shoe store, you sit down, and the salesperson pulls out that metallic slidey thing to measure your feet. What is that called? It's not a foot sizer or a shoe measurer. Its proper name is the Brannock device. It was invented in 1927 by Charles F. Brannock, and it measures 3 key aspects of your foot: the length from heel to toe, the length from heel to ball, and the width. Its design has barely changed in almost a century because it asks just that good at what it does. So next time you're getting your feet measured, you can impress the salesperson with your new vocabulary. Now with one you might have experienced in school: the Pygmalion effect. This isn't magic, it's pure psychology. It describes how higher expectations placed upon us can actually lead to an increase in our performance. Think about that teacher who told you, "I know you can do this," and suddenly you could. Their belief became a self-fulfilling prophecy. They treated you as if you were more capable, gave you more challenging tasks, and provided more feedback. In response, you rose to the occasion. It's a powerful reminder that the expectations we have for others and for ourselves can dramatically shape outcomes. So, if you want to help someone succeed, start by genuinely believing in their potential. It might just be the push they need. Now for a little experiment. Find a spot on the wall and stare at it. Don't move your eyes. As you continue to stare, notice what happens to the things in your peripheral vision. Are they starting to fade away? This is the Troxler effect in action. Your brain is incredibly efficient. When it's presented with unchanging stimuli, like the stationary objects in the corner of your eye, it decides that information is no longer important and effectively erases it from your conscious perception. It's why you don't constantly feel the clothes on your skin all day. Your brain filters out the constant, unchanging noise to help you focus on what's new and important. It's a brilliant, built-in decluttering system for your senses. Next up is one of my absolute favorites, the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, also known as the frequency illusion. You know how it goes. You learn a new word, or discover a new band, or, as I mentioned, buy a new car, and suddenly it's everywhere. You hear the word in conversations, the band's song is on the radio, and you see that car model on every street. Has the world suddenly changed? Nope. Your brain has. Your awareness is now primed to notice this new thing. It was always there, but your brain was filtering it out as irrelevant. Now that it's on your radar, your selective attention is working overtime to point it out. It's not a coincidence. It's just your brain highlighting what it now considers important. Imagine you're at a loud, crowded party. Music is blasting. People are laughing, and dozens of conversations are happening at once. It's a chaotic wall of sound. Yet someone across the room says your name, and like a laser, your attention snaps right to it. How? This is the amazing cocktail party effect. It asks your brain, has remarkable ability to focus on a single auditory stimulus while filtering out a range of other noises. You can tune into one conversation and essentially mute the rest. This selective hearing is a testament to the incredible processing power of your brain, allowing you to find a signal in the noise and engage in meaningful communication, even in the most distracting environments. Let's move into something a bit more neurological and profound: the phantom limb sensation. When a person has a limb amputated, they can often still feel sensations, like an itch, a cramp, or even intense pain, as if the limb were still there. This isn't just in their imagination. The brain has a map of the entire body, called the somatosensory cortex. When a limb is removed, the part of the brain map corresponding to that limb doesn't just go dark. Instead, it can become hyperactive or be rewired by neighboring regions, creating these very real, tangible sensations. It's a powerful and sometimes painful example of how the brain's representation of the body is just as important as the physical body itself. Ever had a gut feeling about something? That's not just a saying, it's a biological reality. Welcome to the gut-brain axis. This is the constant, two-way communication highway between your brain and your digestive system. It's why stress can give you a stomachache, and why an unhealthy gut can contribute to feelings of anxiety or depression. Your gut is lined with millions of neurons, so many that it's often called the second brain. It produces neurotransmitters like serotonin, the feel-good chemical. So, what you eat doesn't just affect your body. It directly influences your mood, your thoughts, and your overall mental well-being. Taking care of your gut is truly taking care of your brain. Have you ever jumped out of your skin when something startled you? You can thank your amygdala for that. Tucked deep inside your brain are two almond-shaped clusters of neurons that act as your personal alarm system. The amygdala is the brain's fear center. When it detects a potential threat, a sudden loud noise, a shadowy figure, it triggers the fight or flight response in a split second, long before your conscious mind has even had a chance to process what's happening. It floods your body with adrenaline, raises your heart rate, and prepares you to either confront the danger or run for your life. It's a primal survival mechanism that has kept us safe for millennia. Here's a more sobering phenomenon: the bystander effect. It's a social psychological principle that states individuals are less likely to offer help to a victim when other people are present. It seems counterintuitive, right? You'd think more people would mean a higher chance of someone helping. But what often happens is a diffusion of responsibility. Everyone assumes someone else will intervene. Surely that person over there will call for help, they think, and so no one does. It highlights a strange quirk of group psychology and serves as a critical reminder. If you see someone in need, don't assume others will act. Be the one who steps up. Now, for a trip down a collective memory lane that might not be accurate, let's talk about the Mandela effect. This is a fascinating phenomenon where a large group of people share a false memory of a past event. The name comes from the widespread, mistaken belief that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s. Another classic example. Do you remember the children's books as the Berenstain Bears or the Berenstain Bears? It's always been Berenstain, with an A. Or the famous line from Star Wars: is it Luke, I am your father, or no, I am your father? It's the latter. The Mandela effect shows just how fallible and malleable our collective memory can be. Have you ever crammed for an exam, felt confident and then forgotten everything the next day? You've experienced the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. In the 19th century, psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus discovered that our memory for new information fades incredibly fast. In fact, his research showed that we tend to forget about 50% of what we've learned within just 1 hour and around 70% within 24 hours. But don't despair. He also found the solution: spaced repetition. By reviewing information at increasing intervals over time, you can flatten the curve and lock that knowledge into your long-term memory. It's the ultimate study hack, straight from the father of memory research. Have you ever noticed that when someone truly believes in you, you tend to perform better? That's not just a coincidence. It's a well-documented psychological phenomenon called the Pygmalion effect. It's named after a Greek myth, but its effects are very real. When teachers have higher expectations for certain students, those students often end up achieving more. The same goes for bosses and their employees, or even coaches and their athletes. The belief someone has in your potential can actually create a self-fulfilling prophecy, pushing you to reach new heights. It's a powerful reminder that the way we treat people and the expectations we set for them can have a tangible impact on their success. So, next time you want to help someone succeed, start by believing in them. All right, let's move on to a little brain game. I want you to look at the screen and say the color of the word you see, not the word itself. Ready? It's harder than it looks, right? If you found yourself hesitating or making mistakes, you've just experienced the Stroop effect. This effect demonstrates the delay in our reaction time when there's a mismatch between two pieces of information. Your brain automatically reads the word blue faster than it can process that the word is printed in red ink. This creates a kind of mental traffic jam. It's a classic experiment in psychology that beautifully illustrates the interference between automatic and controlled thought processes. Our brains are wired to read words without even trying, and it takes conscious effort to override that impulse and focus on the color instead. Now, let's get into something that sounds like it's straight out of a superhero movie. Synesthesia. Imagine listening to your favorite song and seeing bursts of color with every note, or tasting a specific flavor, like strawberries, every time you hear a certain word. This is the reality for people with synesthesia. It's a fascinating neurological condition where stimulating one of your senses automatically triggers an experience in another, unrelated sense. The most common form is grapheme color synesthesia, where letters or numbers are perceived as having their own specific colors. It's not a disorder, but rather a unique way of perceiving the world. For synesthetes, these connections are consistent and involuntary. It shows just how interconnected and creatively wired our brains can be. From perception, let's drift into the world of sleep. We all dream, but have you ever wondered when those really vivid, story-like dreams happen? Most of them occur during a specific stage of sleep known as REM, which stands for rapid eye movement. If you were to watch someone in this stage, you'd see their eyes darting back and forth beneath their closed eyelids. During REM sleep, our brain activity looks surprisingly similar to when we're awake. Our breathing becomes faster and irregular, and our heart rate and blood pressure increase. However, our bodies are essentially paralyzed, which is a good thing. This temporary muscle paralysis prevents us from acting out our dreams. So, REM sleep is this incredible paradox: a highly active brain inside a resting body, creating the cinematic masterpieces we call dreams. But what tells us when it's time to sleep in the first place? We can thank our circadian rhythm for that. Think of it as your body's own 24-hour internal clock, ticking away in the background. This master clock is located in a part of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it regulates our sleep-wake cycle. It's the reason you naturally feel sleepy at night and more alert during the day. This rhythm is primarily influenced by light exposure. When light hits our eyes, it signals to our brain that it's daytime and we should be awake. This is why looking at screens late at night can disrupt your sleep. The blue light tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime. Maintaining a regular circadian rhythm by going to bed and waking up around the same time is one of the best things you can do for your overall health. So, if the circadian rhythm is the clock, what's the mechanism that actually makes us sleepy? Meet melatonin, often called the hormone of darkness. As daylight fades, a tiny, pine cone-shaped gland deep in your brain called the pineal gland gets the signal to start producing melatonin. Melatonin levels rise in the evening, signaling to your body that it's time to wind down and prepare for sleep. These levels stay high throughout the night to help you stay asleep and then drop in the morning as you're exposed to light, helping you wake up. The pineal gland was once considered a mysterious third eye by philosophers, and while it's not quite that, its role in governing our sleep is absolutely essential for our daily restoration and well-being. Moving from sleep to action, let's talk about the part of your brain that keeps you from falling over right now. Tucked away at the back of your skull beneath the main part of the brain is the cerebellum. Its name is Latin for little brain, and that's a perfect description. Although it only makes up about 10% of the brain's total volume, it contains over half of the brain's neurons. The cerebellum is the master coordinator of voluntary movement. Every time you walk, pick up a cup, or even speak clearly, your cerebellum is hard at work, fine-tuning your movements, ensuring they're smooth, balanced, and precise. It's like the brain's quality control center for motion, constantly adjusting your posture and balance without you even having to think about it. Now, you've probably heard about the left brain and the right brain, one being more analytical and the other more creative. But how do these two halves talk to each other? They communicate through a massive superhighway of nerve fibers called the corpus callosum. This thick bundle acts as a bridge, connecting the left and right hemispheres of the brain and allowing them to share information and coordinate their activities. Without the corpus callosum, the two sides of your brain would be working in isolation. It's what allows you to, for example, see an object with both eyes and process it as a single, unified image. This constant crosstalk is what makes your brain such a powerful and integrated processing unit, allowing for complex thought and action. Let's shift gears and talk about stress. That feeling of being on high alert with your heart pounding and your senses sharpened, what causes that? It's largely driven by a hormone called cortisol, often nicknamed the stress hormone. When you're in a stressful situation, your adrenal glands, which sit on top of your kidneys, release cortisol into your bloodstream. This triggers your body's fight or flight response, preparing you to face a perceived threat. In the short term, this is incredibly useful. It boosts your energy and helps you stay focused. However, when we experience chronic stress, cortisol levels can remain high, which can lead to a host of health problems. It is a perfect example of how a system designed for short-term survival can become detrimental when it's constantly activated. Most of us don't think about our spleen very often, but this organ, located just behind your stomach, plays a vital role. Think of it as your body's sophisticated blood filter and recycling plant. As blood flows through the spleen, it detects and removes old or damaged red blood cells. It then breaks them down and recycles valuable components, like iron, so your body can use them to make new, healthy red blood cells. The spleen is also an important part of your immune system, storing white blood cells and helping to fight off certain kinds of bacteria. While you can live without a spleen, having one gives your body an extra layer of defense and efficiency.
Hope you all liked the video. This is one of the many videos which we have posted, but this is the first video where I am using my own real voice. Well, uh, the facts which we have used in this videos are completely original. They are not copied for anywhere. But although we all know that there are many which makes facts based videos, so there might be a time when you feel that you have heard these facts in another video. So we cover a lots and lots of facts in our videos. So it sometimes it becomes problematic, or we can say it becomes an issue for others when they hear the same fact which was shown in another video in someone else's videos, and they hear it in our video too. So just you I'm really sorry for that fact, but I will be trying my real best to use more unique and original facts. From next videos, I will try to introduce more 40 minutes or 1 hour videos, because many of the people are not able to complete 2 hours of this compiled facts. So we will try our best. And this is my first time using my own voice in this video, and uh, making a communication with you all. Please, if you have any of the suggestions for our video, please drop it in the comment section. We will make sure to improve ourselves. We are currently working on the visuals. Right now, we are using the generated images, because for this many of the facts, it's impossible for me currently, a solo editor, to add more comments, expressive visuals. So in coming future, we will be adding more human like images, stock videos and all. So we all just need your little support for that. Just like the video, make it go, make it get some little views more than what we currently get, because when once I get the motivation that whatever I'm doing is getting some real attention, I can put more time and effort in what I make. It is not that, it doesn't means that I'm not giving my all to this, but currently it is a side hustle for me. So thank you all for your time, and please support, subscribe, and like the channel.